The Lecker Rugby Pod Instant Reaction with Harry Jones. Only on Megafoon Rugby.
What a game in Scotstoun. Listen, Glasgow is a good team, and they're one of the best teams in the world, and they showed it. They were negated by a Bulls team that was properly up for it. You got the feeling that there were some long plans in store here, that Jake and his friends had kind of held a few things back, but also had custom made a set of plans. I'm not going to say that the second half was like my plan to beat Glasgow, where you take their strengths and negate them and encourage them, but I'm going to say there were some aspects of it. The idea that you rely on big carriers. Glasgow got turned over about 18, 19 times. That's a huge turnover win. You let them, in a way, sort of make a salient, a battle of the bulge, and then you cut them off. If you get people into the passing lanes, there will be interceptions. Yes, one time, Kane Moody got a hand to it, but it still went over and there was a try. But for most of the match, there were bodies in between. We look at it as space, but on the field, pitch side, at normal height, you can't see it. So that was brilliant. I think the Bulls treated the 22 as a try line, and this was part of how they ended up triumphing. Is they were so stubborn and gritty until the final 7-8 minutes, when the fat lady did not sing yet. She put her stuff away, and a guy like me who had sworn that I was going to wear light blue had put my light blue on a little bit early, and I was destined for an embarrassing change into my black hoodie with a black hat, because the demonic, as our friend Johan calls them, were no real. They just don't quit. And guys like Stafford McDowell, really strong game all match long. Tom Jordan never quits. Kyle Stain was a busybody. They just kept coming, and that, to be frank, they had lots of space on the outside all game long. But the shooters of the Bulls, Moody Blues, Kana Moody in a bad mood. He's a bad boy nowadays, and he came hunting. He was trying to say, Jesse Creel, I want your job. The fast start that the Glasgow usually uses, because then they're not really a late try scoring team, that wasn't there for them. And that was mostly done by ultimate obliteration of set pieces. And here we need to talk about our front row guys. So the Bulls have some formidable beef at the front, but just give you a little bit of inside story. The captain's run in Munster, where I was hanging out with Jake and looking at things, I was struck by the fact that Grobbelaar, the little one, not the big one who came on, the mountain blonde guy who came on, Janrik Wessels and Akar van der Merwe were practicing grubbers with Kane Moody. Kane Moody was the scooper, and then they were doing little runs and chases. And I thought they were doing some kind of bet, like, I don't know, or they were just running a sort of private score. But when I think about it later, they were actually in an organized part of the field, and it seemed like they did it for a very long time. And Cameron Honeycomb also came over. So there was a design here about forwards who have the skill set to grubber. Akar did it. Wessels did it. Grobbelaar did it. And so we move on to the idea of one of the best lucid prop performances that I've ever seen in my life at top level. Mostly because Wessels did everything. He pilfered wide, he pilfered long, he pilfered close. He saved a miracle try by cradling a player. He's in his lap, sang him a lullaby, put him to sleep. He tracked back and obliterated somebody. He made them think about their life choices, and they were scrambled. It was like egg salad. It was a combination. I posted that it was like Bismarck met Malcolm Marx, and then they threw in somebody else. Like, actually, by the end, I thought maybe they were throwing in the ghost of Jean de Villiers, because there were so many intercepts. Listen, the Bulls rocked up to Glasgow without their top carrier, their top tackler, their top jackler, and the top offloader. That's all actually one guy, Cameron Honeycomb. But when you take someone off that's got that season-long effect, and then you drop out your 31 tackle man, Marcel Coetzee, who was scheduled to be on the bench, and you're going up against number 2 in the ERC, 2 versus 3, number 5 versus number 6 in my Harry index, and you lose that kind of influence in the loose forwards, then you actually wonder what the loose forward battle on the ground is going to look like. It turns out that was decisively won, not just by the actual loose forwards, but also because, even select row where 4, 5, 6, 7 all kind of the same shape, which Jake was questioned about. It's because everyone on the front row played like a loose forward. I would even submit Wilco Low got a little bit too amped up. And there were 2 moments in where he could have gotten carded, and luckily he got one where it was considered a low degree of danger to have Wilco Low's shoulder run into your head. I think even at very, very slow speeds, there's a high degree of danger when you get hit by a bucky. No, the ground was nice. The DJ was pumping. My friend MVA doesn't really like DJs that much when they're too rowdy, but this one actually was quite clever, and he had good tunes. It's a nice feel. It's not a big ground, but everyone was proper into it. It did feel spicy. I know Jake keeps saying it wasn't revenge. It wasn't revenge, but if you circle a match, like, I don't know, a year ahead of time, and every one of your players starts to light up with a gleam in their eye, and they look like an assassin on top of a building when you say Glasgow, it feels like there could be vengeance in the air. Look, the Bulls began by kicking too long and not out. They didn't find the guy with the beer in row H like I advocated. Mistouched twice from penalties as well. But the scrums went Bulls' way. And the referee who played rugby for Belgium, sort of interesting background, born in Cardiff, I think played rugby in Ireland, then got selected by Belgium. Look, I'm not a guy who talks about refs very much. I just felt like he understood the feel of the scrum very well. He didn't bog down on technicalities. He knew exactly what was going on in terms of dominance. He refereed the breakfoot well. He had good assembly. There was only one, I think, scrum early call. And he let that thing breathe, By the end, it was like Pinot Taj had become champagne. It popped, and the whole cork came out. And he let that happen. So he waited a long time, but then he gave also long advantages. Listen, at some point, I think Wilco just took a rest on that little tiny suffering chair. That chair was about to break, but he needed the break. When he came off, he was even better. But that knocking beauty of Jan-Hendrik Wessels was actually, to me, the story of the first 40. Had it not been for Wessels, just think about what would have happened. The score might have been terrible, and it might have every single point that we talked about before the match might have been the other way around. The entries actually were delayed for Glasgow. They had to work really hard to get there. In the end, when they took the try in the first half, it was mounted pressure, it was set piece, it was first phase. They had a hard time securing their first ruck because Marco was shedding that load a lot. The scrums, like I said, went 1, 2, 3, 4. Out of 4 of the first 6 scrums were penalized. This game almost in the first half, felt like a little bit like that game we play, which is, what is the worst thing to happen to you? 5 charge downs, 5 intercepts, 5 scrum penalties, or 5 line breaks, because it kind of split for both sides. And Devin Williams has got to clean up the charge down. He got charged down in a very bad situation. Clearances all night long were not easy and smooth for the Bulls. There were a lot of box kicks by Glasgow. In a sense, the Bulls almost lured Glasgow into a kick fest as well. So I think the Bulls had about 30 kicks, and I think maybe Glasgow had about 25. And there were times that they did box kicks in places where all season long Glasgow has launched. But anyway, the maul, which was actually a strength for Glasgow as well, which is also their scrum, by the way. Their scrum is not weak. The scrum is near the top, maybe 4 or 5 in New York, but their maul was stopped. And so there you see the cleverness of picking such a long levered second row, because it's very difficult to run a maul when you have 4 guys in defense that have 2-meter type wingspans. And that told a lot of the story. Boxes were dropped by both sides, and chase was fierce. But I actually think in the chase game, in the end, the Bulls were a little bit better. Going up 3-0 actually felt pretty big in that context of the game. Going up 6-0 felt pretty big, and it took a Ambrose Papier steal to help out his brother, Johan Goosen, who missed touch. And some very unusual people were pilfering. Besides Jan Hendrik Wessel going, I don't know, sometimes 50 meters from a ruck to a ruck to do a pilfer or a tackle, Papier was mixing it up with the big boys. So we had the TMO. I thought it was fair. I thought it was well done, clearly communicated. Could have gone worse than yellow, could have gone less than yellow, but it basically wound up with an adjudication that Wilco was had to be sent out of penalty only, and then you had to determine the severity and also the fact that someone was shunting the carrier into him. So that felt like kind of a reprieve. But then the Bulls did get warned, and the referee was sort of a habit to warn and get to the 2 or 3 phase. But if the 3 penalties were all for the same thing, then he warned quicker. But he was also doing the same thing later on scrums, which was cool. I like a referee who will card you for a scrum. Even though he didn't, it put doubt in their minds. There was another smash ball back by Wessel somewhere around 16 minutes, and it just felt like the game was getting very, very brutal. It resulted in a series of scrums that also ended up in penalties, and that's where Mornay Smith showed his value, and that you can bring someone on like that for Wilco Low and nothing else deteriorates. So Glasgow did use they used that that little period of time to crawl in, work out a try, and use that outside space that appeared for just a second. With 37 minutes to go and the score being 7-6, it felt a bit deflating for the Bulls. And then there was that scrum, 8-on-8, everyone restored. The hit, the bind, the long bind. That's the thing about Wilco and some of the other scrummagers is they look like they're going to be squat buddies, but they got very, very broad shoulders and they can bind very long. And that's what a referee loves to see. Plus, you can squeeze all different parts of them. 9-7 with a nice long kick by Goosen, who was making up for some of his out-of-hand errors by Sweet Strike. At halftime, you saw some familiar shapes. Glasgow had carried, I don't know, almost 100 times. They'd passed the ball 125 times. The Bulls had thrown the ball around 48 times, taken 47 runs, gallops with the ball. 4 line breaks for Glasgow, but that track back, lack of back-ish scramble defense had negated that. Only 1 line break for the Bulls. But it was too much in the Bulls off. There was not enough playing Glasgow as they were, and then both sides were turning down the 3. Into the second half, and we were chatting on our little WhatsApp group, and we had Andre Pretorius and Johan on there, and it just felt like whoever seized the moment as Oranges died and went on the field, it would be important. And sure enough, line break right off the bat. Kubas Visa, my nemesis, finding Creel on the scamper to the 22, but lose the ball. But it was ominous. It was ominous how quickly they opened up Glasgow up the middle like a can opener. There were some counters, there were some turnovers, there was back and forth, but the scrum kept bringing the Bulls back to ascendancy. Scrum 6 and scrum 7. Jeff fumbles the ball at the line out off of a scrum penalty, and then Glasgow drops it right away. And then you have another scrum. And the problem with the 8th scrum is it just felt like Glasgow drooped. They just knew it was bad. It was bad. It was bad to drop the ball at all. Then it makes you drop the ball more. So off the line out and the maul, slow phase attack, almost by design. I've been bitching about that all season. Sometimes it's good to just grind down and pound and ground, ground and pound like Drickus, your opponents. And so then Grobbelaar can flop over for his last act of the game for a try, 16-7. At this point, there was 12 turnovers already for Glasgow, and that negates your 100 and whatever, 30 carries. Doesn't matter. You can carry all day long, but if you turn it over every 5 or 6 times, you're done. So on came Akker and the angry warthog. He finds Ruan immediately with his first line out, clean as a whistle, kick regain. Vessels does the grabber, and then Visa is blocked off the charge down attempt, shielded off. He is not given access. And I think it's nice to see how Kubas sold that too. I mean, he made sure that 9, who he could have put in his pocket, made it look like he was pole-axed, fell down, rumbled around, made that referee make the call. It's okay. It doesn't matter what happens to you later in the change room about a 9, getting sure the ref sees the ball when it's clear. So that point, taking the lead 19-7 at 55 minutes. Ooh, it was nice to see the little pan shots to the coaching box because clever Fox Franco Smith didn't look so clever anymore. Looked a bit desperate. Now they had things to go to. They definitely had tools in their toolbox. But the problem being down 19-7 is the minute anything goes wrong at all, and that's what happened, a long kick. Sebastian de Klerk never giving up, scampering like a dog on the beach, chasing a frisbee, knees it, just barely avoids palming it. Tom Jordan's in the 6s and 7s should have just took a wild hack and kicked it out, but instead he tried to go down to the ground and get it on that squeaky plastic turf, and that bouncy ball can really hurt you on the 4G, 3G thing. David Creel, who, to be fair, was running support lines all night long, wasn't always seen. He took it and ran in 26-7. Blink of an eye. Now Franco Smith has to just throw balls to the wall, pedal to the metal, and go a bit nuts. There is a monster scrum that keeps preventing him from doing it in time. At 66 minutes and 48 seconds, mark it down. That's where the game was won, because that monster scrum, I mean, it must have been about a 7-8 meter push, obliteration, line out to 5. Doesn't even matter what happens next. It means that you've chewed up about 3 or 4 minutes, up 26-7, and it's a long road back in a short time. Hooson does an interception athletically at 68 minutes. That kills some more clock. Akar has a neat kick out into the 22. That chews up 2 more minutes. On comes the man mountain. Jakubas Grobbelaar, where do you keep making them? And then we finally see a series of breaks. But it's 17 minutes, so it's 10 minutes left. It's too much to do. Bulls are scrambling, just delaying, bend, but don't break. Back into the Glasgow 22, then Glasgow goes back into the Bulls 22. It's end to end to end. Kanan Moody just decides, I'm going to show how big a man I am, and he smashes a guy into the moon. And at this point, we have 17 turnovers for Glasgow, and that's the key stat in this game. Funneled in, like I said before, don't give away the extreme outsides. Every time there was someone in the trams, it was trouble for the Bulls. But if you kept between the trams and you kind of had the shadow of the poles as your outlines, the Bulls were feeding them into big monster tackles, and that told the tale. So Kyle Stain runs in for what you think is a consolation try at 26-12, but Glasgow never gives up. You cannot look at these guys, see what they've done, see the points differential they've built over the season, and think they're going to go away nicely and kindly and meekly. So, what I said in our WhatsApp group is now at this point, pretty much Bulls can make a lot of mistakes and it's still okay. But the Bulls made a lot of mistakes and it was still okay. Now, did it take a few things here and there? Absolutely. With the score being what it was, though, at 26-19, one talking point's going to be raging in Pretoria, which is Willie LaRue, your most experienced guy, the guy you kind of think as a coach on the field, who should have situational awareness. I mean, that bonus point, it could matter. I mean, I don't know how it's going to matter. Will it matter? I hate to make that, stain or pale the idea of 2 wins on the road against Munster and Glasgow, because if you said that before you started, you wouldn't really care by how much. I mean, just give me 2 wins by a point each. We're good. But when you have the ball in your hands and you have the ability to slot a penalty to take away that bonus point, and who knows how points differential will factor in. There's all kinds of permutations depending on how this goes. You want to be second. You've got to be second in the log when it's all said and done. So that's one thing that, costs a pull. But, in the end, I want to say that there were so many good performers, but it's hard to go beyond Jan, Hendrik, Vessels. He was a vessel of malice, full to the brim, but happy too. And if I ever see a held up try better than that hold up, where he literally took the boy, changed his nappies and stuck a little pacifier in his mouth, I will really enjoy that, because that was one for the ages. And the level at which he has gained weight, lean muscle, and still kept his speed is a bit bizarre. And I don't know what's going on exactly there. But I did remark about that when I was in Munster, just seeing him close up, that he had looked like a different animal nowadays. So well done, Bulls. I'm wearing my light blue in your honor. And this is sort of vindication in some ways, because if you think about it, Franco Smith was hiding in the bushes, on the mountain pass, God help me pass, behind the rocks, and he just jumped you guys and waylaid you, took everything away, and been singing the song ever since. This is sort of a turnaround. Vengeance is a dish best served cold, and that was cold. That was a cold undressing. Well done to everyone on the pack who I think brought it. And then at the back line, just hanging on for dear life all game long. Cheers.
The Lekker Rugby Pod Instant Reaction with Harry Jones. Only on